God's in his heaven, all's right with the world. Here's your look at the new Threezero Evangelion, the new theatrical edition, the Robo-DOU Evangelion Proto Type-00. The Robo-DOU Evangelion Proto Type-00 collectible figure is a non-scale articulated figure approximately 9.8 inches tall with a remarkable die-cast mainframe that provides 48 points of articulation. The figure is constructed of ABS, PVC, POM, zinc alloy, and the Threezero renowned paint application techniques are utilized to highlight all the details. The collectible figure includes many interactive features to increase playability. The entry plug hatch can be opened to reveal the entry plug inside and includes two entry plug accessories, both a short entry plug for inserted mode and a long entry plug for extracted mode. The figure also comes included with the umbilical cable that can be attached to a socket on the back of the figure. Before we get a closer look at the Evangelion Proto Type-00, I'd like to thank the folks over at Threezero that did provide this sample that we could have a look at in this video. There's going to be a lot to really cover off in this review, but I guess we should really start things off first by figuring how tall the figure is going to stand. Now, I already did say that at the beginning of this review, but you know, I'm all for the idea of just double checking anyways. If you really technically count the side shoulder struts, then the prototype is actually closer to being about 10 inches in height. But if you want to go only to the head, then you're only looking at the figure being about 9 inches in height. And to look that on the other side, you're looking at a figure, the Evangelion prototype, being about 23 centimeters tall. Usually is the case when it comes to these Threezero pieces that the figures come included with an adjustable display stand, and the prototype is no different. First, let's have a look at the display stand, which as you can see is here a molded black plastic display base. No opportunity taken, unfortunately, to actually print onto the front here. They either could have put like Evangelion New Theatrical Edition, or they could have put like Evangelion Prototype 00. Nothing was actually printed onto the top of the display base. Perhaps an opportunity missed. Still, though, it's a nice adjustable display stand. It does involve a little bit of assembly when you first take this out of the packaging. You have to take the main piece, and this snaps into the back, and then a slightly smaller piece snaps also into the front. You can see the way it plugs into the bottom underside of the display base, and this does give you some adjustability. Right now, it's in a locked position. If you did want to unlock it, though, there's a little latch onto the top here that you just swing forward, and that then allows the neck to hinge forward and back. Just draw it up or bring it further forward, depending on what kind of incline you'd like to have for the adjustable neck. As for the neck itself, the neck is also adjustable. It does ratchet up. Now, there's a little button release here that when you press this in, it does normally allow, there we go, it does normally allow you to drop the neck down, and then when you ratchet it back out, it locks it back in place. Nice to see that they actually did do that. Now, when we have looked at Threezero pieces before, generally at the top there is a sort of a matching piece to what is actually inside here, sort of a ratcheted peg, and it actually fits right inside of here. Now, because the prototype actually does things slightly a little bit different with the umbilical cord, you actually get two versions of it. One of which is the part that actually does replace the part that normally is on the display stand. As you can see, the little ratcheted grooves will fit inside of this, and this will actually serve as the part that connects onto the back of the robot. There is also there is a smaller version of that as well, and actually let's just take this one from the display stand right now to show you the difference between the two. This is the standalone umbilical connector. You can see it's, again, slightly smaller. It kind of looks like the pump that you would use at a gas station, just, again, slightly smaller than this one. They're both molded of a gray plastic with some additional black in this case, and additional brown on this case here. In both the cases, actually, on the underside, you can see like there's a hole. There's one right here and one right here, as you do get the actual umbilical cable. Now, this fits just underneath, inside the hole. And providing you actually have it far enough in, it seems to stay pretty good. If you don't have it all the way in, though, I've noticed that the umbilical cable doesn't want to stay in place and usually falls out. This is an adjustable frame, a wire frame, so you can actually either make this straight, you can also curve it as well, but the length of it is already far surpassing that of the prototype, so I generally like to curve it a little bit and have it actually dangling out the back of the robot. In both the cases, you're actually going to take the prototype, spin it around. And located here on the back, there's no cap that has to be removed, no plate that has to be taken off. You can see like it's almost got like a little face, 2 eyes, and a mouth down below. You're going to take 2 versions. Like I said, either one of these versions work the exact same way. On the front here of the larger one that connects actually onto the display base here, you can see again there's 2 pegs and a slightly larger peg down below. And that's going to be attached just onto the back right like that. We're just going to snap it in place. And when you are snapping in place, don't resist the urge to actually put it straight. Instead, you're going to want to put it on an angle, and that plugs into place. And then from there, that slots into the top of the neck like that. If you don't, however, want to have it attached, oh, by the way, as well, we can also take the umbilical cable, and that fits just into the hole that's provided underneath. It stays somewhat, like I said, in place. If you didn't want to use, though, the display stand, I'm going to go then and go ahead and remove that. Just detach this. It's actually a pretty strong grip. Just going to remove it from the back torso, wiggle it back and forth if necessary. And then you're going to take the smaller port, the one that has the smaller connector, and smaller length at least, and that's going to plug also into the back of the robot. And you're just going to slot it again on an angle. And then if you want to just have it on a standalone without the stand alone, you can then have, of course, just it attached like that and just kind of do away with the display stand completely if you wanted to. As for the rest of the figure's accessories, we're going to have a look at the entry plugs. One is a longer extraction plug. One is a slightly, well, about 2/3 the length. One is an entryway plug. They're designed exactly the exact same way, other than the fact that this one is about 1/3 length longer. To slot in either one of these, what you're going to do then is take the prototype once again, flip this around. And located here on the back, first of all, we can detach the umbilical connector because we don't need that anymore. There we go. You're going to take the head part. I'm going to spin this way so you can see it a little bit maybe easier. You're going to take the neck and you're going to bring this forward, draw this forward like that. It's a pretty strong joint. The first time I did this, I was a little more reluctant, worrying that I was going to snap something. It's just, it's more tight than just anything else. Just like I said, bring this further forward. And then you're going to go ahead and lift this part up, which is already somewhat lifted already. And then there's also this back part here that you're going to lift up, and then you're going to lift it from there. And as you can maybe see inside, there's now a revealed hole. You can take either the insert plug as the entryway plug, and that just slots into place, and actually allows the top canopy to close over top of it. Or if you want to have it as if it's already extracted, just once again lift it up. It's a little harder to actually get this. A lot of times it's easier just to tilt the robot forward. And then if you want to have the extraction plug, as it's obviously the longer of the two, you can just permanently leave the canopy open and leave the entry plug as something that's just now sticking out the top of its back. Either one would work fine. A lot of times I would rather, I think, instead display it with more the entry plug inserted and close the canopy completely. But like I said, you can go either way if you want. Going to move those out of the way. The figure also comes included with a pallet rifle. I do really like the coloring that they decided to go with here, sort of more of a military green. Some nice additional afforded panel lining has been added there in black. Some nice silver has also been added, and a few little accents of yellow go in there as well. Really, really nice looking gun. As it stands right now, it's not going to be fitted into either one of the figure's hands because right now those hands are just relaxed hands. But rest assured, Threezero's got you covered. You got actually a second pair of hands. These hands are suited for perfectly holding the pallet gun, pallet rifle. What you have to actually do in this case is take the fingers and just slightly bring them away from the palm. The plastic, it seems soft enough. You didn't have to struggle too much with it, but if you do have difficult time actually trying to get the pallet rifle into its hands, you can obviously go in there and heat the hands too with hot water. Put it sort of more on an angle like this, and then just bring it around to fit it around the fingers. And like I said, that will fit then onto the forearms. Other hands we can also look at the time right now. It comes included with a couple, again, those trigger firing fingers with trigger firing hands. Nicely detailed. I do really like the coloring that they went with here. Sort of an off bluish gray with those additional yellow knuckles added in there as well. Really super detailed looking hands. The figure also comes included, speaking of relaxed hands, slightly more relaxed hands, although these are more completely flat. Still really only being for accessories, they've actually nicely panel lined the bottom of the palms. And again, on the top of it, you can see some additional detailing of the yellow added in there as well. Super cool looking, like I said, hands. Also comes included with a couple of hands for holding the shield. That is that large thing, by the way, that's just off to the side of the figure. It also serves in a funny way, like thumbs up hands. You can also use it in that way as well. And even though it's not really going to be helpful to hold accessories, the prototype also comes included with closed fists. I personally would rather just display it, I think, with a gestured hand, or maybe really go all out and display it both with the Pallet rifle and the ESV. That's, by the way, the Enchanted Shield of Virtue. Speaking of the Enchanted Shield of Virtue, we can go ahead and pick that up right now. It's a large bit of molded plastic. It actually has a lot of weight going for it. It may not be too heavy in my hand, but it is a lot heavier for the prototype to hold in its hands. I'll talk more about that in a second. Just to put, though, the shield next to the bot, you can see just how big the shield actually is. And it has the same matching palette of both the white, the yellow on the actual bot that we're going to be looking at, with just as much detail spent on the inside as they did on the outside. Once again, ESV, Enchanted Shield of Virtue. There are several different handles in which the bot can actually hold on to the shield. The one down below would probably be the most effective one, but the downside to it is if you're using the bottom handle, there really isn't a lot of stability. If you use this handle, though, then the shield is going to be too far resting onto the floor. You will have to have the shield more on an angle in order for it to properly hold it. To attach this, I find it actually is helpful first to attach the hand onto the pegs. These pegs can be very difficult to change the hands onto. Once you remove either one of the hands putting it back then into place, these pegs like to shift way too much. Just to show you how one of them works, I'm going to leave this one on because that's the one I'm going to use for the shield. Just sort of hold on to the peg. You can, again, have a lot of patience when it comes to these coming off. You don't have to rush right into doing it. There's a little bit of, like I said, softer plastic on the hand, so it may help a bit to help you wiggle the hand off the peg. Like I said, it's not easy. Just to hold on to the peg, like I said, and free the hand. I've already taken the liberty of actually adding the hand to the Pallet rifle, and we're going to just plug this back into place, because that's going to be the way I'm going to display the figure. But just to show you how difficult this is, as I'm putting it back in place, usually is the case with a lot of these pegged figures, smaller pegs on the ends of forearms tend to shift around a lot. You can kind of hold your finger against the peg to prevent the peg from shifting, at least on that side. And then, like I said, you're just going to twist and wiggle this back onto the post. Like I said, not super easy. I think we've got it on that one side. Now, like I said, to do it on the side with the shield, it is probably the easiest to put the hand in first, because that's going to be the one that's going to give you the most of the problems. And then from there, you're just going to attach the hand then onto the shield by the handles. Again, there's this handle here. There's this handle, and then there's off a couple onto the sides as well. The most logical one for the length of how long the shield is would be this one right here. You can then just take the hand or the fingers of the hand and just fit this around the handle of the shield. But unfortunately, there's nothing really to rest the shield. A lot of times what I ended up doing was just taking the arm and bringing this out, and then sort of using the side of the shoulder as sort of a stabilizer just to keep the shield in place. There's a lot of weight. Not as much, again, for me to be holding the shield, but for the actual prototype to be doing it, the best advice really is just to bring the arm out just a little bit and almost even have the shield resting against that. And certainly, going back to the idea of using the display stand, like I said, display stand is probably your best bet for something like this. Now, again, you can have it holding the shield from this handle, but then the shield is going to be way too long, and you're really going to have to angle the arm up in order for it to properly hold it. Best one is probably going to be this handle here. They probably could have either put like even a clip or something onto the shoulder. There we go. No, like I said, it's a lot. There's a lot more weight here than there is up to the top. So it does flop around a lot more. And really, you also don't want to be covering the head of the prototype either. Yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time, a little bit more patience, I think, to get the shield properly into the hand. Like I said, I feel it's just way too big. I wonder if they could have also maybe given a secondary piece that could have gone right here. Taken this replacement shoulder, after all, it is on a ball joint after all, and have this as a replaceable piece, and put a new one in that had a clip right here, that you could then have taken the shield, attached it by the handle, and it had maybe the clip sitting on the shoulder that could have plugged and rested against it. Because there's really nothing that, like I said, there's from the part where it holds it in the hand, beyond that, there's nothing really to hold the shield. It's designed appropriately, but I just don't think it's as successful here on this 6 scale, just simply because, again, like there's nothing really to hold properly the shield in place. Like ideally, that's where I would want to really have it resting on the prototype. But just with how much weight there is down below, it just shifts around, I think, way too much for me. Determined to get the prototype to properly hold the shield, what I ended up doing was finding, I think, a fix to that. So it's still going to be holding it in the same handle that I had it before. But remember, the issue was the fact that it wasn't sitting against its body. There's a shoulder part that sticks out right here. It has it on both the sides, after all. And then there's a secondary handle, you could say, a little bit further near the end of the shield. If you take this part of the blade of the shoulder and slot it in there, it seems to help to kind of compensate for the fact it's not resting close enough to its body. And as it goes right now, it seems to hold the shield a lot better than it did before. Now, nowhere in the instructions does it actually show how to properly clip it onto the bot's body. The only place that actually shows on, in fact, well, let's grab the instruction manual so you can see. Even here, pictured on the front of the cover, it's holding it by the further handle, the furthest down below, but nowhere up here does it actually show that it clips onto the robot's body. So what I ended up just doing was, like I said, slotting it in there. And like I said, it seems to do a pretty good job. It may not be the most accurate with the way that you're going to be displaying it, but at least I can move it around, and the shield isn't going to be all floppy, and it's certainly not going to fall out of its hand either. I think we can all agree that we've talked way too much about shields. Instead, let's look at the features now for the Evangelion Proto Type-00, a nicely constructed and quite colorful looking bot from Threezero. Primarily, its body seems to be constructed of metal. Not only is it cool to the touch, but things are heavy on this, like its arms, super cool to the touch. Its arms, its torso, and lower legs seem all to be of metal. Things like its kneecaps, for example, its lower feet caps, things like the sides of its arms, things like the side blades of its shoulders, and of course its head sculpt are using the plastic material. So when you are picking this up, yeah, it does have a lot of weight going for it. I do like the head sculpt quite a lot. Not only is it brightly colorful, but I do like the way they've also used a translucent red plastic for this Cyclops eye on the interior. They have also added not quite a matching color, but a matching translucent plastic for the top of its dome as well. I do wonder if this could have been something that could have been illuminated. Granted, yes, it would have involved them having to add a battery compartment, and yeah, it probably would have also added an additional cost. But I wonder if they had put batteries in this, that would have also allowed this front eye to illuminate a lot brighter than what we're getting right now. Still, I like it. I like the way they've actually done it. There's a little bit of additional color that doesn't seem anywhere else on the rest of it. Sort of this off purple color, while all the rest of the construction of it is all either done in lemon yellow, like a white color, this medium gray, or this jet black that makes up the underframing of the robot. Spinning it from the side so you can see all the additional details. The one thing I really like about this, and something that Threezero continues to impress me with, is the way they paint these figures. Not only do you have the bright yellow happening here, but added in there is all these little notches and scratches, all done in additional black. It's things like that that really make the features pop on this. I mean, to look at this and just to see all the smaller things that they've added to it, like the Evangelion prototype, for example, markings there on the side of its arm. So small, in fact, it would almost be hard to see if you didn't have a camera in front of you. There's also some additional panel lining that they've added. Also, these little blades that are underneath the robot's arms. And again, you've got some nice panel lining added to the legs here as well. Again, feels like metal here, metal in the torso, metal in the arms. The only thing, again, it really does feel like plastic is in the shoulders and in the head, and then like all these little extra pieces like the knees, the caps that cover the boots, and things like that. The figure is quite posable as well. In fact, actually, we can look at the posability on it right now. The head is on a ball joint. Now, it is a little more limited in the way that you have it configured right now. It's probably best advised, if you want to have a little more articulation, to kind of move the neck a little bit more further forward. That not only grants you access to the cockpit on the top, but it also gives you some additional articulation that was a little bit more limited before. Yeah, you can rock it a lot more that way. Head looks down, head looks up, and you can also rock it back and forth this way too. Now, these additional blades, I continue to call them blades, the little parts that stick out the tops of the shoulder robot of the prototype here, actually is on a ball joint. So you can actually take these and angle them further back as well if you want to. The ball joint is located right here. And you can actually even take it off too if you wanted to. We have looked at ones in the past where they had swappable ones that you just popped off and put in a new one instead, and it just sits against that ball joint. Arms do come out. Again, we're going to look at the rest of the articulation on this right now. The arms do come out. There is an additional crunch. So what it is basically like there's a hinge joint right here at the top of the shoulder blade. And then there's an additional ball joint right here for the shoulder itself. So that allows the arms not only to rotate all the way around this way, you're going to hinge the arm out this way, but then there's also that additional rocking feature at the top of the shoulder there too. There is no bicep swivel. However, though, the prototype does have a double hinge on the elbow, so you get a good range happening for its arms. Hands, though, a little more difficult to peg properly in place. Once you get them in there, at least, they have a nice swivel that rotates all the way around, and you can also move them back and forth this way also as well. Now, the upper torso, again, the way they've designed this, you would almost even look at this and just assume that there's no articulation there at all. But in fact, there is actually a nice ball joint happening right here, about mid-torso of it. There's also seeming to be a secondary ball joint a little bit lower down there as well. So there might possibly be, I just want to make sure I'm covering off all the territory, 1, 2 ball joints independently working to allow some really decent range of motion here for the prototype. The legs do split out. You can take the legs and bring them forward. You can also bring them back. And just by the way that they're actually constructed these, you can actually swivel the top of the thigh back and forth as well. There's a nice range of motion, a double hinge here on the knee. When it comes to the feet, you can move them back and forth this way. There's an ankle pivot this way. There's toe articulation and also the caps. I'm just going to get in there so you can actually see there. The caps are also on ball joints. It's sort of like a dumbbell ball joint. So there's a ball joint right here, and there's a ball joint a little further up from that allows the top caps of these to actually move back and forth also as well. So like I said, the prototype, as we've seen before with other Evangelion releases, is super detailed. Super articulated, super detailed, well-painted figures. I really do like the look of the prototype here. My only criticism when it comes to things like this, kind of more not so much is about the prototype, but actually for the shield. I hate to go back to the shield and keep talking about this, but I really wish that there could have been like a clip or something further up here that could have clipped properly somewhere onto the shoulder area. Like if they had put maybe like a connecting peg right here between the ball joint that then could have snapped and clipped onto here. That way you could have actually had the shield further away from the prototype's arm. As it goes right now, like I said, I did end up just slotting the blade of the shoulder, slotting it right in there, and that sort of works as a serviceable fix. It's about the only thing, though, that I wish that could have been done differently here for the Evangelion prototype. Other than that, though, like I said, it's a super detailed, very, very well articulated figure. I mean, like, you'd be surprised with how articulated and how posable this thing is actually until you get one in hand, get out of the box, and you decide to put it on display. Now, as of right now, I've only got it really just standing as is, but once you get it on the display stand, once you get those legs moving and in a running pose, like I said, a really impressive display piece to put on your shelf, along with the rest of the Evangelion pieces that Threezero have released in the past. Seeing some of the images online of the Threezero Evangelion Prototype 00 does actually have also the robot holding the shield like I've got here in Final Looks, making use of not just the one handle, but actually two, and having it holding in both of its hands, sort of using it as a bracing wall. I kind of like the look of this, and being the fact it has as much posability to go for it, you can actually get it in a pretty successful looking pose. Mind you, it does mask a lot of the finer features that Threezero took the time to put in the figure in the first place, but there's always that option available if you didn't want to try to have the shield in one of its arms. Because if you try to put the shield in one of its arms, I just feel like there's way too much floating space that it's not going to properly hold it. But yeah, you can also display it this way, or you can also make use of the handle further up and just sort of have the shield resting against the ground and having it standing along with the prototype. A couple of different options available. One thing I really like about this is the price point that once again Threezero are releasing these figures for. Many of the online sites that I'm looking around right now for looking at what this price is going for, many of them are advertising this from like $140 to $160. And you keep it in mind for the fact that it's made of metal, it's got some plastic components, so many accessories is what it does, and the amount of posability that it has at its disposal still astonishes me, the fact that Threezero are able to release these pieces at such affordable prices. Certainly, though, if you are a big fan of the Evangelion series and haven't yet had the chance to pick up the prototype, like I said, you're probably going to be looking to pay, in many of the cases, either like $140 to in some cases I've seen like $165, but it's far below the $200 price point. A big thank you, though, to the folks over at Threezero that did come through and provide the sample of the Evangelion Prototype 00 that we can have a look at in this video. What do you guys think of the figure? Let me know down below in the comments section. Is this something that you guys would like to pick up and add to your collection? Always like reading your comments down below. And if you are new to this channel, you're enjoying the content that you're seeing, make sure you're hitting the subscribe button. You're making sure as well you're turning on the bell notification and making sure, yes, you're coming back to this channel, because while we have wrapped up the review for the Evangelion Prototype 00, there may be also some other Threezero reviews coming your way in the not so distant future. Speaking of which as well, popping up at the very end of this video, if you'd like to go and check out more that I've done for Threezero in the past, there's also going to be a playlist for Threezero reviews. So feel free to give that a gander. Like I said, if you have a little bit of time on your hands. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.